How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we've got another review. Today we're going to be reviewing this 2013 Ford Expedition EL Limited. So this Expedition is actually the third generation of the Ford Expedition, and basically how the generations went, they started making them in 1997, and the first generation went from 97 to 2002. The second generation was from 2003 to 2006. And the third generation is the longest. It's basically from 07 all the way up to 2017. And then the fourth generation is 2018 to present. Now, like I said before, this is a 2013 Ford Expedition. From the years 2013 to 2015, they didn't really change that much at all, except for some little like interior details. But for the most part, I'm pretty sure the exteriors were practically the same, and I'm almost certain that they actually did recycle the drivetrain, the same drivetrain throughout those years. So anyways, guys, this is the EL Limited trim. It is also the four-wheel drive trim. I'll talk more about the drivetrain in a minute, but for now, I'm going to stay on the exterior. So basically this 2013 EL Limited trim actually came with 7 exterior colors, as well as 2 different interior options. Now, I did find that interesting because for the total trims, like for all different colors like available for the 2013 Ford Expedition, all of the colors available were actually, there's 16 different exterior colors and 6 different interior options. Now, obviously, as you guys can see, the color on this Ford Expedition is basically just the plain factory Ford like white color. So anyways, basically my overall opinion about this SUV is that it's a pretty good, like, larger family SUV. And as you guys can see from the side, it is very long. And I definitely think that this SUV would be fantastic for like a larger family, and it could even double as a great work truck as well, whether, you know, for a professional contractor or like a business, or just for someone who does a lot of personal work. And it is capable of a decent amount because the maximum towing capacity for this truck is actually 8,700 pounds. And it does have a max payload right under 1,600 pounds, right at 1,580 pounds. Now, like I kind of just said a minute ago, this is actually classified as a full-size SUV. As you guys can tell, it is very big. So the actual dimensions for this SUV, it basically has a length of 221.3 inches, a width of 78.8 inches, a height of 78.3 inches, a wheelbase of 131 inches. It also has 8.7 inches of ground clearance and a curb weight just over 6,000 pounds, right at 6,078 pounds. And also, I do find that pretty cool because looking at the curb weight of this vehicle, this actually is the heaviest vehicle that I've actually had on my channel and like actually done a review on. So now moving on, this truck actually does have a completely independent suspension, both in the front and the rear. And in the rear, it actually is a multi-link rear suspension. It's not a live rear axle. And also, looking at the wheel setup, these are actually the factory wheels, and the limited trim, it does come with these 20-inch wheels. I believe they're actually 20 by 8.5 inches. And these wheels are wrapped in 275 by 55 by 20 all-season tires. All right, guys, so now I have the hood popped on this 2013 Ford Expedition. And underneath the hood, you can see the 5.4 liter naturally aspirated single overhead cam flex fuel capable V8 that actually powers this truck. And also, this engine does have 24 valves, so it's a 3 valve per cylinder engine. And also, again, this is the four-wheel drive trim, so this truck does have on-demand four-wheel drive. Anyways, this engine does produce right around the same power that actually comes from the other 3-valve V8 around this time that Ford actually developed in the 05 to 09 Mustang GTs. Actually, probably produces a little bit more power than that, 4.6 liter. This engine does actually produce 310 horsepower at 5,100 RPMs and 365 foot-pounds of torque at 3,600 RPMs. Which, again, this truck does weigh a little over 6,000 pounds. So that's honestly not that much power for the size. It's definitely like on the slower end. But even though it definitely does not produce that much power, I'll still be sure to see how it actually drives when I take this thing out for a drive today. And also, don't forget, but this truck is also flex fuel capable, so it can pretty much run on an 80% up to an 80% mixture of E85 So now moving on to the interior, I did just want to open the back tailgate here, and it does open automatically, which is a pretty cool feature for a 2013 truck. Now moving on to the back, I can fold those seats down and actually like bring them down a little bit lower so they're kind of even with the third row, this back row here. So obviously there's plenty of cargo space. One thing that I definitely wanted to highlight is these controls actually control the back, like the third row. So as you guys can see, I can press that. That controls the single one on the right. I can also bring that one up, and basically they just go up. You just have to hold them, and then to fold them down, you just press fold, and they go right back down. So it's basically just a like automatic seats for the third row, which again, for a truck from 2013, I feel like is pretty cool. And then you just have to press that and watch your head, and then the tailgate is automatic as well. Now, one feature that I kind of love and hate on these Ford trucks, and it was the same for the F-150 Platinum that I reviewed. Obviously, you can see the sideboards kind of come out. Now, I don't like this feature, kind of partly just because I don't really trust it and it just feels weird, but I do think it is definitely ingenious. It obviously helps out a lot, especially if you're going to take this thing or like an F-150 or something like that, actually off-roading. So that way, when you actually do close the doors, it basically just comes in with the doors. So now I'm actually in this truck. I am going to spend a little bit of time in this interior. Obviously, you can see the truck is automatic, a 6-speed automatic transmission. I know I didn't really mention that when talking about the drivetrain. If I actually go ahead and fire this thing up, you can see basically you have your infotainment screen right here that first loads in with the Ford logo. Then it actually gives you a live like GPS where you're at, so that's pretty cool. And overall, like Ford likes to kind of keep it simple, but I feel like in more recent years they've definitely been, you know, upping their quality with just their vehicles in general. And I do really like the interior of this truck. And as you guys can actually see, I don't know if the camera's actually picking it up, but there's 126,081 miles actually on this truck. And honestly, I mean, just looking around, I mean, you guys can kind of see for yourself. There's no real, you know, big cracks that I notice in any plastic pieces. There is a lot of plastic in here. A lot of this stuff isn't like, you know, metal, or like in the F-150 Platinum that I reviewed, it's not like actual real wood. But for the most part, pretty much everything is like held up fine. There's not even any discoloring like on the dash or anything, just from being out in the sun. So anyways, now I'm actually going to take this thing out for a drive and show you guys my initial reaction. All right guys, so now I'm driving this Expedition and kind of stepping on it. Yeah, it's definitely not like super quick at all, but I mean, it's very comfortable and accelerates extremely smoothly. And accelerating again, yeah, it takes a while to downshift, but I mean, you hear the V8. But I mean, the V8 is definitely like still actually kind of fun in it, which is kind of surprising to me because like, I don't know, 350 foot-pounds of torque on a vehicle that's like 6,000 pounds. I wouldn't expect it to be that much, but it's definitely a little bit quicker than I anticipated. That being said, it's not like, you know, fast, but still, it definitely did take me by surprise, and it still drives like very smooth. Like right now, just with the windows up and the air on, it is very comfortable in here. Obviously, the turning radius is definitely a little bit wider. And one thing that could definitely, you know, take some getting used to is how long the back actually extends over the rear axle. And I know it's not like a King Ranch or like an XLT. I'm pretty sure there's a couple trims that are even bigger than this one. But still, it's definitely like, it's a big truck. Like, it's a full-size SUV, and you have to be conscious of that while driving it. Now, that being said, I'm not, you know, saying that it feels like a car or it feels smaller when you're driving it, because it definitely doesn't. But still, I mean, going from something a lot smaller to driving this, it's definitely a little bit of a change. And that's another thing too. I mean, obviously right now it's a beautiful sunny day out, but I'd have to assume like this thing under pretty much any weather conditions or like road conditions would perform absolutely fine. Now again, that being said, off-road and more like extreme off-roading, this is not what this is designed for. But if I was driving through like a blizzard or a rainstorm, this is definitely a vehicle that I would love to actually be behind the wheel in. And that's another thing too. I almost feel as though it's so comfortable in this truck that it definitely, inspires some confidence. It actually gives you some confidence while driving it, which could also be a negative thing or even an unsafe thing, because that's when people might become lazy and they'll start to, text and drive, talk to people, turn around, not really pay attention to the road, and that's obviously when accidents can happen. Now, just looking around, what I find kind of funny, I mean, if you don't know my specific car, if you're like new to my channel, first of all, be sure to subscribe. But I do actually have a 2008 V6 Mustang, and just looking around the interior, like the air conditioning vents exactly the same as the Mustang. Obviously a lot of different things in here that Ford kind of recycles through, the F-150, the Mustang, just all their different models, which me personally, I don't have a problem with it because it keeps their, manufacturing costs down. It saves them money so they can focus on research and development and spend their money kind of elsewhere, instead of, giving this truck unique air conditioning vents or some stupid thing like that. But I do know some people might think that that's cheap and some people might not like it. But again, me personally, I don't really mind at all. I just kind of wanted to highlight that for you guys because I do find it kind of funny that there's pieces in here that are also in my car, even though my car is completely different than this thing. Now, one environment that this truck might be a bit of a headache in is driving through like a city, driving through like a downtown area, and obviously public parking as well, because this thing is such a land yacht. But I mean, besides that specific scenario, I'm pretty sure this thing would handle just fine in about every other, daily driving situation that you might be put against. Now again, as far as fuel economy is concerned, it's almost non-existent with this truck because naturally aspirated V8. So yeah, when comparing this thing to like, I don't know, a Mustang GT or like a Corvette, the fuel economy is pretty much the same because again, naturally aspirated V8. But if you're holding this to a daily drivable vehicle like standard, the fuel economy is definitely atrocious. Especially when compared to like modern day like plug-in hybrids or like modern day like 4-cylinder turbo cars that get upwards to like 30 miles per gallon. All right, I'm gonna step on it again here. And yeah, it actually it accelerates pretty well. Now braking, it's a little bit squishy on the brakes. Now I don't know the exact dimensions for the rotors, but just looking at the brakes from the outside, they looked like pretty standard brakes that you'd see on like a car. So when you're trying to stop something that's 6,000 pounds, it might be better if this truck did come with upgraded brakes, or if you have this truck and yeah, I guess you're just watching this video to like learn more information about it, if you want to actually go ahead and find a set of aftermarket brakes, throw on a little better brakes, that would definitely upgrade the driving experience in my opinion. So that being said, guys, that's pretty much, I kind of got to everything that I wanted to talk about with this truck. Not that much else to talk about, but again, the cargo space is fantastic, the daily drivability is fantastic, but where it excels in like those aspects, it definitely does lack in fuel economy. But overall, again, I am very impressed with this truck, considering the fact that it's a 2013. Again, not super old, but some of the features that it does have in here. Also, the automated third row, I don't know why, but I feel like that's really, really cool and actually useful. I don't really like I don't really like the automatic tailgate just because I actually like to, you know, lift it, and especially you have to like sit there and wait for it to open. But again, for the most part, I'm definitely very impressed with this truck. And plus, it really does not feel like a vehicle with over 120,000 miles on it. It feels very comfortable, very smooth. The suspension is great. The truck is very easy to drive. All right, guys, so that's pretty much just gonna wrap up today's review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If it was entertaining, informative at all, definitely be sure to leave a like down below. It helps me out a lot as a smaller YouTuber. And also definitely be sure to subscribe down below, because I post videos at least 3 times a week, and I post vehicle reviews like this, modified car reviews, DIY videos, car show vlogs, automotive news, a bunch of different videos. So anyways, guys, like always, thank you guys for all the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one.